This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, I'm talking about how to optimize your health savings account or HSA in 2025. A lot of people confuse HSAs with FSAs, flexible spending accounts. They're very different, actually. And as I mentioned yesterday, if at all possible, you want to select a high deductible health plan so that you can utilize an HSA, because you can only save and invest in an HSA if you have the right type of health plan. So take the time to do your homework, pick the right plan so that you can fund an HSA. And you'll thank me 20, 30 years down the road in retirement when you've saved a boatload of money for medical expenses and invested it along the way. Okay, so today I want to talk about how and why you'll want to consider funding your HSA, not for current year, but exclusively for future healthcare costs. Now, according to a 2024 Fidelity retiree healthcare cost estimate, a 65-year-old person may need as much as $165,000 in after-tax money to pay for healthcare expenses in retirement. $165,000. If you started maxing out your HSA contribution today, and you fall under the family maximum contribution of $8,850, and you contributed that amount each year, it would take you about 13 years to save enough for your $165,000 in expenses in retirement. And that's assuming that you invest it and it grows at 6% annually. So most people aren't focusing and aren't going to maximize their HSAs for 13 years. And most people miss out on the growth opportunities by investing it as well. So if you are at least 10 years out from retirement, that's the time to really make sure you're maximizing your HSA, make sure you're investing it so that it can grow and continue to grow for you in retirement. If you're younger like me, it's harder because it might make sense to split contributions where you're still maxing out your HSA, but maybe you keep more in cash for current year's expenses, and then you set aside, only a portion, still a majority. I would still set aside 80, 90% if I could for future expenses. Now, if I could, there's a very important qualifier there, because this is assuming that you have savings set aside. Ideally, regardless of your age, you'll want to save and invest in your HSA and pay for current year's expenses for medical costs out of pocket. Now, that's not always realistic in the real world. Just last month, I had an ER visit with my daughter. She ended up having pneumonia. About a week later, my husband ruptured his eardrum, so he had to go to urgent care. These things add up, and you don't necessarily always have the money in savings to pay for these things, especially the unexpected emergencies. And so being able to tap into your HSA dollars, at least a portion of it when needed, is helpful. But as you approach retirement, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, the vast majority of your contributions should really be shifted towards long-term investing with the goal to set enough money aside to pay for medical costs in retirement. We want to be long-term focused here, because essentially the goal is to take advantage of those tax-deductible contributions, the tax-free growth, and the tax-free withdrawals if you use the money for qualified medical expenses. You're paying for your healthcare costs in retirement now, and you're letting your money work for you. So if you invest $1 now and you save it and you invest it wisely, you can turn that dollar into $2 or $3, depending on how well you invest and what your time horizon is. We want to be able to save less money, have that work for us more, and enjoy the tax benefits that come with maximizing the HSA contributions, maximizing the perks that come with it, which are the tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals if it's used for the right things. Now, it's much easier to pay for big, expensive $165,000 worth of after-tax money that you're likely to spend in retirement. It's much easier to do that slowly, gradually. Let the money work for you, set the money inside, invest it, not have to worry as much in retirement about how you're going to pay for medical bills, especially in retirement when your income is limited. That's going to hurt way more to pull from your retirement accounts like an IRA to pay for medical expenses when you could have utilized your HSA. And when you consider that selling IRA assets or selling investments in taxable accounts, those have tax consequences that aren't favorable. You pay taxes on that money. If you have capital gains, you pay income taxes if you use IRA assets. So funding the HSA consistently, investing in the account for growth, it's way more tax efficient to pay for healthcare costs in retirement because, again, the money that you pull out of the health savings account, as long as it's used for qualified medical expenses, zero tax on those withdrawals. Very important. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Coming back tomorrow, where I'm going to talk about why the HSA is still worth it, even if you're worried about saving too much money and not using all of it for healthcare expenses. My name is Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.